Transformation begins long before any external result shows up. It starts in the invisible arena of the mind, where identity is shaped, challenged, and rebuilt. Most people spend their lives chasing goals, but they never stop to ask themselves, who is the person achieving this goal? If the identity doesn't match the goal becomes impossible. Real change requires you to confront the truth that your old identity, your habits, beliefs, decisions, and patterns cannot take you where your new life exists. You cannot hold on to your past and reach for your future at the same time. There is always a version of you that must die before a stronger version can live. This is why transformation is not a matter of talent or opportunity. It's a matter of releasing the identity that keeps you anchored. Every breakthrough begins with a bold declaration that you will no longer identify with the weaknesses, excuses, and fears that shaped your old life. Your identity is the internal thermostat that regulates your potential. Even if you achieve a small win, you will always return to the level of your identity. If you see yourself as average, you will behave average, decide average, and settle for average, even when greatness is within reach. This is why the first step to becoming unrecognizable is upgrading the way you see yourself. When you elevate your identity, your results naturally rise to match it. Identity is built through repetition, not intention. You cannot simply decide to be the future version of yourself. You must repeatedly behave like that person until your mind accepts the new standard. Every choice is a vote for the identity you want to create. Every action you take either strengthens your old self or reinforces your new one. You become the sum of the identities you feed. Transformation demands that you stop negotiating with the voice that tells you to stay small. That voice is not your protector. It is the echo of your old identity trying to survive. You must interrupt it, challenge it, and replace it with a stronger internal narrative. The moment you stop believing the limitations you inherited, you begin rewriting the blueprint of your life. When you shift your identity, your habits follow. When your habits shift, your actions follow. When your actions shift, your results begin to change. This chain reaction cannot be reversed. You don't force transformation, you allow it by aligning your thoughts and behaviors with your new identity. The outer world adjusts itself to the inner change. Many people never experience true growth because they are emotionally attached to the version of themselves that keeps them comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of identity evolution. To become unrecognizable, you must be willing to feel uncomfortable, uncertain, and stretched. Growth begins where familiarity ends. The uncomfortable moments are not signs of failure. They are proof that your identity is expanding. Identity is also shaped by the standards you set for yourself. Weak standards create weak identities. If you accept half-effort, low discipline, and fear-driven decisions, your identity becomes built around avoidance and excuses. When you raise your standards, you force your identity to evolve. High standards create strong identities, and strong identities create unstoppable lives. You must also become intentional about the words you speak to yourself. Your internal language is the architect of your identity. Words like I can't, I'm not good enough, I always fail become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you want to transform, your language must reflect your future, not your past. Speak in a way that aligns with your greatness, not your limitations. Identity is strengthened through consistency. You cannot create a new identity in a single moment of motivation. It is forged in the small daily choices that no one sees. It is shaped in the moments when you do the right thing, even when you don't feel like it. Every time you keep your promise to yourself, you are telling your mind, this is who I am now. Another key part of transformation is separating your identity from your history. Your past is not your identity unless you continue to claim it. You are not your failures, mistakes, or disappointments. Those were events, not definitions. Identity is not built on what happened to you, but on what you decide from this moment forward. The person you are becoming matters far more than the person you were. Transformation requires vision. You cannot step into a new identity without a clear picture of who you want to become. This vision must be strong enough to guide your decisions, energize your actions, and silence your doubts. The clearer your identity becomes, the easier your choices become. Vision turns ambiguity into alignment. Identity change also demands honesty. You must be brutally honest about the behaviors and beliefs that are keeping you stuck. You cannot heal what you hide. The moment you acknowledge the gap between who you are and who you want to be, you gain the power to close it. Honesty is the doorway to reinvention. You must also detach from the old stories you tell about yourself. Those stories may feel true, but they are often outdated narratives created in moments of fear or insecurity. Every time you repeat them, you reinforce an identity that no longer serves you. Rewrite your story, and you will rewrite your identity. Rewrite your identity, and you will rewrite your destiny. As you step into the new identity, people around you may not understand. Some will resist your growth because your transformation exposes their complacency. That is not your concern. Your transformation is your responsibility. You must be willing to outgrow environments, relationships, and mindsets that no longer fit your identity. If something cannot support your next level, it cannot come with you. The most powerful truth is this: identity is a choice. You do not have to wait for circumstances to change. You do not have to wait for permission. You can decide today who you will become, and every decision afterward can align with that identity until it becomes undeniable, unshakable, and unrecognizable. Changing your life never starts with changing the world around you. It begins with changing the world within you. Every major breakthrough in human history started with someone deciding to think differently about themselves. When you build the identity of your future self, you are not pretending. You are practicing mentally what you intend to live physically. You begin to walk, talk, choose, and behave as the upgraded version of you long before the results show up. This inner alignment becomes the magnet that pulls your life in a new direction. Your identity is the driver of every decision you make. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you will unconsciously choose actions that keep you struggling. If you see yourself as someone destined for greatness, your behavior shifts to match that expectation. Your future identity acts like a blueprint, guiding your daily choices and silently shaping your destiny. You can't escape your identity, but you can rebuild it. When you start embracing the mindset of your future self, your old patterns lose their power. Most people try to improve their lives by focusing on what they want, but they rarely ask, who is the person capable of achieving this? The future you thinks differently, responds differently, and expects differently. Building that identity requires intentional thought, visualizing the highest version of yourself until it becomes familiar. Familiarity is what the mind trusts. And once your future identity feels familiar, your actions naturally follow it without resistance. You must stop waiting to feel ready before you act like your future self. Readiness is not something you wait for. It's something you create through repetition. Start acting as the person you want to be, even if it feels unnatural at first. Every time you practice being that person, your brain rewires itself. You begin to build new mental pathways that support confidence, discipline, clarity, and purpose. Over time, the identity that once felt impossible becomes the identity that feels inevitable. Building your future identity requires a shift in how you speak to yourself. Internal language is a powerful tool. If you constantly speak in ways that reflect your past limitations, you reinforce an identity that no longer aligns with your goals. Speak boldly about your future. Speak as someone who is capable. Speak as someone who is committed. Your words shape your identity long before your actions do. The more you affirm your future self, the more natural it becomes to live as that person. Another key element of identity building is eliminating the behaviors that contradict your future. You cannot claim to be disciplined while repeatedly choosing the path of least resistance. You cannot claim to be focused while constantly seeking distractions. Every contradictory behavior weakens the foundation of your new identity. Let your actions mirror the standard of the version you want to become. Alignment between your beliefs and behaviors is the secret to rapid transformation. Your future identity should challenge you, not comfort you. Growth never happens within the boundaries of who you are right now. You must be willing to step into the unknown, to make decisions your old self would never make. When you make choices from the perspective of your future identity, you instantly elevate your life. These decisions stretch you, test you, and ultimately transform you into someone new. There will be moments when your old identity tries to pull you back. Old habits will whisper, old fears will rise, old excuses will try to negotiate. This is normal because your brain is designed to repeat what feels familiar. But each time you resist those old patterns, your new identity grows stronger. Identity is not built in a single moment. It is built in the repetition of choosing your future over your past. Your environment also influences the identity you are building. If you are surrounded by people who expect you to stay the same, you will feel pressured to shrink back into who you were. Surround yourself with individuals who reflect the identity you want to grow into. People who speak boldly, think big, and live with purpose. The right environment makes your future identity feel natural, not forced. You must also reshape your self-image, how you see yourself when no one is watching. Your self-image controls what you believe you deserve. If your self-image is small, you will sabotage opportunities. If your self-image is powerful, you will rise to meet them. Visualize yourself as confident, disciplined, successful, and intentional. The more you reinforce this image, the more your mind begins to act in alignment with it. Identity building requires emotional resilience. There will be moments when you doubt yourself or question the path you're taking. But doubt is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you are stepping into unfamiliar territory where growth is actually happening. When you feel stretched, uncomfortable, or uncertain, recognize it as evidence that your identity is evolving. Embrace temporary discomfort for permanent transformation. Your daily habits must reflect the identity you are building. Habits are the physical expression of your internal beliefs. If you want to become someone unrecognizable, start cultivating habits that your future self lives by. Wake up with intention. Guard your time. Feed your mind powerful information. Practice discipline even when no one is holding you accountable. Every habit becomes a brick in the construction of your new identity. Your future identity must become the standard, not the goal. Goals can be missed, delayed, or changed, but standards define who you are regardless of circumstances. When you raise your standards, your identity automatically elevates. You begin to demand more from yourself, and your actions begin to match that expectation. Standards create identity, and identity creates results. Identity shifts require patience and persistence. You will not completely rewrite your internal narrative in a day, but you can shift it with every conscious choice. Every moment you act like your future self, you weaken the grip of your old identity. Over time, the balance shifts. You stop trying to become the new version of you, and you start operating from that identity automatically. The shift becomes natural, and eventually it becomes permanent. What you repeatedly imagine, believe, speak, and practice becomes your identity. And your identity silently builds the life you experience. When you construct the identity of your future self with intention, consistency, and conviction, you set in motion a transformation that cannot be stopped. Most people try to change their entire life in one massive leap, and when they fail, they assume they are the problem. But the truth is, transformation rarely begins with big actions. It begins with disrupting a single destructive pattern. One pattern can control your momentum, your confidence, and even your destiny without you ever realizing it. When you identify and break that one pattern, you create a ripple effect powerful enough to shift the entire direction of your life. Change doesn't require force, it requires precision. There is always one behavior that keeps your life stuck in place. It may be the habit of procrastinating, the habit of seeking validation, the habit of overthinking, or the habit of tolerating environments that drain your strength. These patterns don't just waste time, they weaken your identity. When you break the pattern, you're not just changing an action, you're changing the psychological hold that action had over you. This is why disrupting one toxic pattern often feels like removing a weight you didn't know you were carrying. One broken pattern creates emotional momentum. You suddenly realize you are capable of more than you thought. Confidence grows, discipline strengthens, and belief expands. The moment you see yourself break a pattern that used to control you, you begin to trust yourself again. You begin to understand that change was never out of reach. It was simply buried beneath repetitive cycles. Momentum is not created through perfection, but through interruption. When you break a pattern, your brain begins forming new neural pathways. Your mind starts to adapt to a new normal. It stops expecting you to fail. It stops anticipating the old reaction. It learns that you are not the same person repeating the same choices. Small changes produce real biological shifts. training your mind to act, think, and respond differently. This is the foundation of identity change. Rewiring your brain one decision at a time. Patterns are powerful because they are automatic. You do them without thinking, without questioning, and without noticing their cost. That is why breaking a pattern requires awareness. You must observe yourself with honesty, without judgment. Pay attention to the triggers that push you toward the old behavior. Pay attention to the moments your confidence collapses. Pay attention to the situations where you shrink instead of rising. Awareness is the first step toward disruption. Breaking one pattern often exposes the others. Once you interrupt the behaviors that drain your progress, you begin to see the hidden roots of your limitations. You start noticing why you procrastinate, why you doubt yourself, why you avoid certain responsibilities, or why you repeat certain emotional cycles. You cannot heal what you cannot see, and breaking one pattern brings everything into the light. There is always resistance when breaking a familiar pattern. Your mind loves repetition because repetition feels safe. Even destructive patterns create a sense of comfort simply because they are predictable. When you try to break them, your mind will whisper excuses, fears, and doubts. This resistance is not a sign that you should stop. It is a sign that the change you are making is real. You are disrupting something that has controlled you for a long time. The key to breaking a pattern is replacing it with something that supports your growth. You cannot simply stop a behavior and leave the space empty. The mind seeks routine. If you remove a destructive pattern, you must fill it with a constructive one. Replace procrastination with structured action. Replace negativity with intentional gratitude. Replace avoidance with decisive steps. Every replacement becomes a building block of your new life. Breaking one pattern teaches you discipline on a manageable level. It becomes a controlled environment where you prove to yourself that you can follow through. You learn what triggers you, what strengthens you, and what empowers you. This experience becomes the training ground for larger transformations. The discipline you build through one pattern becomes the discipline you apply to every other area of your life. Pattern breaking also redefines your emotional strength. It teaches you to act even when your feelings argue. It teaches you to move even when motivation is low. It teaches you to rise even when you are tired. The emotional maturity gained from breaking a single pattern becomes one of your greatest weapons in life. Eventually, you stop allowing emotions to control your decisions, and you begin making decisions that lead your emotions. When you disrupt one pattern, you change the way you see yourself. Instead of identifying as someone who repeats cycles, you begin identifying as someone who breaks them. This shift in self-perception is powerful. Identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as someone who can break patterns, you naturally begin breaking more of them. Your belief in yourself begins to expand. Breaking one pattern frees up energy, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Patterns drain your strength without you noticing. When you disrupt them, you suddenly have more clarity, more focus, and more internal space to grow. You begin thinking differently, planning differently, and acting with more intention. The energy you reclaim becomes fuel for your transformation. One broken pattern can also change the relationships in your life. People who benefited from your old behaviors may resist your new growth. People who respected you will respect you even more. People who doubted you will become confused. Patterns do not just shape who you are, they shape who you allow around you. Breaking a pattern reveals who is aligned with your evolution. There is a psychological shift that happens when you prove to yourself that you can disrupt what once controlled you. You no longer feel powerless. You no longer feel trapped. You begin to see yourself as capable of change, capable of discipline, and capable of rising above your old excuses. This belief becomes the foundation for everything you do moving forward. Breaking one limiting pattern is not about fixing your life overnight. It is about unlocking the momentum that transforms your entire identity. When you disrupt that single cycle, you open a doorway to a new reality where change becomes natural, progress becomes consistent, and growth becomes inevitable. Your environment shapes your identity in ways you often don't notice. The people you talk to, the conversations you entertain, the spaces you stay in, and the energy you allow around you all influence how you think, behave, and grow. When your environment stays the same while you're trying to evolve, it creates internal conflict. Part of you wants to rise, but your surroundings keep pulling you back into old habits and old beliefs. This is why elevating your environment is essential for anyone who wants to become unrecognizable. Growth cannot survive in a space that was designed for your old self. Your environment includes the standards you allow in your daily life. If the people around you normalize laziness, negativity, gossip, and low effort, you will naturally lower your standards to match them, even if you are strong-minded. Proximity influences perspective. You cannot consistently surround yourself with people who accept mediocrity and expect to live at a high level. The environment always wins. If you want to elevate your identity, you must elevate what you allow around you. Many people stay stuck because they feel loyal to environments that no longer support their future. They hold on to relationships, groups, habits, and spaces that remind them of who they used to be. But transformation requires letting go. You cannot step into greatness while clinging to the comfort of familiarity. Growth demands separation from anything that limits your expansion. Sometimes the hardest part of transformation is not becoming the new you. It's leaving behind the old environment that keeps you small. Your environment also includes what you feed your mind daily. The videos you watch, the music you listen to, the conversations you participate in, and the voices you allow influence your thinking. If you constantly consume negativity, doubt, or drama, your mind becomes conditioned to expect it. But when you surround yourself with inspiration, wisdom, and growth, your mindset shifts automatically. What enters your mind eventually shapes your identity. Elevating your environment means elevating your mental diet. Being around people with high standards naturally raises your own. When you surround yourself with individuals who think big, act consistently, and expect excellence from themselves, you begin to adapt to that level. Humans are influenced by the expectations of their group. When everyone around you aims higher, you begin to feel uncomfortable being the one who aims low. Elevation becomes easier when it's normalized by the people you associate with. Your environment should challenge you, not comfort you. If everyone around you agrees with your excuses, celebrates your complacency, and avoids growth, you will never feel the push you need. The right environment forces you to stretch. It pushes you to think beyond your limits, to take risks, to learn continuously, and to elevate your standards. Challenge is not a threat, it is a catalyst. Surround yourself with people and places that demand your best, not your bare minimum. Sometimes elevating your environment means creating distance. Distance from conversations that drain your energy. Distance from people who never grow. Distance from spaces that remind you of your struggles. Distance from habits that sabotage your progress. Distance is not disrespect. It is protection. Protecting your energy, your identity, and your future requires boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to every version of you. Your environment also includes the physical spaces you spend time in. A cluttered room creates a cluttered mind. A chaotic environment creates chaotic thinking. A space that lacks order, inspiration, or intention can slow down your momentum without you realizing it. When you elevate your physical environment, cleaning your space, organizing your surroundings, creating areas that inspire focus, you elevate your mental clarity and emotional strength. The right environment accelerates your transformation. It helps you think better, act better, and believe in yourself more deeply. When you are supported by people who genuinely want to see you grow, your progress becomes consistent. When your spaces are designed with purpose, productivity increases naturally. The environment doesn't do the work for you, but it makes the work easier. It makes growth feel aligned instead of forced. A powerful environment is one where your future identity is respected. You need spaces where you are not punished for wanting more. You need people who do not resent your ambition. You need conversations that expand your mind, not shrink it. You need surroundings that reflect where you are going, not where you have been. Your environment should feel like a preview of your future, not an echo of your past. As you grow, your environment must evolve with you. The spaces, people, and habits that served your old identity may not support your new one. This doesn't mean they were bad, it simply means you have outgrown them. Evolution requires adjustments. You can't expect to flourish in soil that no longer nourishes your potential. You must plant yourself in environments where your growth is natural, supported, and expected. At times, elevating your environment means being alone for a season. Sometimes solitude is necessary to break old patterns, silence old voices, and reconnect with your purpose. Being alone is not a punishment, it is preparation. It's in that quiet space that you redefine your identity, rebuild your confidence, and strengthen your mindset. The right solitude becomes the foundation for the right environment. Once your environment aligns with your identity, your habits begin to change effortlessly. Your decisions become clearer. Your standards rise automatically. You stop tolerating things that once held you back. You begin to attract opportunities, people, and experiences that match the level you're becoming. Your environment becomes a silent partner in your transformation, constantly reinforcing who you strive to be. Elevating your environment is not a one-time shift. It is a continuous process. As you evolve, you will need to reassess what you allow around you. Growth is dynamic, and your surroundings must grow with you. Every time you upgrade your environment, you upgrade your identity. Every time you upgrade your identity, you upgrade your life. Your next level is waiting, but it cannot exist in the same environment that created your old level. You must surround yourself with the energy, people, habits, and spaces that reflect the future you are stepping into.